Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. I'm super late. I don't know why. I guess it took me too long to eat. But hey, well, let's get into church really quick before the news comes out here. Let's just come in here and make sure that I got the news squawk going here. Okay, so S&P 500 has seen a little bit of a rise overnight, but then that kind of came back. So I was seeing a lot of news outlets going, yay, markets are up this time finally. And kind of maybe not so. Yields still look kind of pressured. They did have a little bit of a reprieve. Now we're getting end of month rebalancing, so we might see some up action, but then we got like this news and we got Chicago PMI. So coming over, we got oil doing poorly this morning. Oh man, that's pretty bad. And NG though, just still skyrocketing. Silver and gold down yesterday. I would say that the damage was somewhat contained, but the dollar was the big news yesterday. Wow, silver got destroyed. Copper doing poorly. So still some concerns about global growth in China and so forth. Now, Bitcoin did not do so well yesterday, but now overnight, just magically levitating. The dollar still relatively strong. 94.4. That is just a crazy number, right? Yesterday, it moved so much. So here we go. We are looking for U.S. initial jobless claims estimate 330,000. So that is versus a previous reading of 351,000. Remember, last week's was relatively bad. So since I'm so rushed, I'm gonna avoid taking something here, but. Okay. Okay, so it was higher, 362,000. We also got GDP, which is 6.7%, which is a tenth higher than the expectation of 6.6. So, I don't know. Completely sure how the market's going to react to this, actually. Maybe slightly up here in the treasuries. Maybe we could get back up to the overnight they were as high as 24, so I don't know. I'm still not even done eating. I don't know what's wrong with me today, why it took me so long to get ready, but I'm going to eat this a little bit while this is just kind of chopping around here. What was it like to grow up as a Mormon? It was like growing up, like normally, you normal person in America that grow up, except for that I was Mormon, basically. Yeah. You've always been curious about them. Well, I think that they kind of give off this sort of like mystery vibe, like there's something, it's kind of like the Masons, actually. I think the Masons would be a really apt comparison. So people are interested in the Masons because the Masons got all this secret ceremonies and stuff, and we're not allowed to see them, and they don't want people to know about it and stuff because to keep the ceremonies sacred, you don't talk about it. But then when you actually go in and you find out what the Masons are really doing, it's really quite mundane. And you're like, well, I don't know why somebody would be that interested in it, but more power to them, right? It's just, it's one of those things that's like more interesting to be left a mystery. What's a good site for a calendar? That's a good question. Every beginner, probably the most important thing you can do is get yourself a good calendar and a good news squawk. So I use I use Financial Juice as my calendar and my news squawk. So I have a link. I am an affiliate with them, so I have an affiliate link in the description if you're interested. But it's about $70 a month for Financial Juice Pro, and then you get the news squawk, and they have this pretty good thing here that shows you the events that are coming up, the actual and the expected pop up there, and you can even set up an alert on them. So like the Chicago PMI, we can come in and we can set up an alert and say, if it's more than this, then buy, and if it's less than this, then sell, and it will make a sound for you. So that's the first one. Now for free, I would look at Forex Factory is the one that I like to use. So here, kind of a similar thing, but the Forex Factory just has a better view to be able to see like everything that's going to go on during the week, right? So tomorrow is pretty big. Core PCE price index, personal income and personal spending, some manufacturing PMI numbers, a consumer sentiment number, right? Tomorrow's a pretty big day. And this is pretty good. The other nice thing about the Forex Factory one is that they have this little detail button. Core PCE price index. What is that? Change in the price of goods and services purchased by consumers, excluding food and energy. Differs from core CPI in that it only measures goods and services targeted towards and consumed by individuals. Prices are weighted according to total expenditure per item, which gives important insights into consumer spending behavior. This is rumored to be the Federal Reserve's favorite inflation measure, but CPI is released about 10 days earlier and tends to garner most of the attention. And then there's a link to the latest release. So then I can come in and I can read the last release. So we can read the one that was released in July. And now we get to know, okay, what is actually in this report? Okay, there's all of these different categories, right? What sort of things did they tend to say? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now you have a really good idea of what the news is, and what you should do is you go to Forex Factory and click on every single one of these things that show up and understand what they're about. And that will put you so far ahead of most retail traders if you just do that. Okay, well, off of that news, we did see a little bit of a rise in the S&P 500, but that has since retraced. We did see a little bit of a rise in treasuries, but that retraced, and at the moment, the treasuries are pressuring the downside. I can see the dollar is kind of a little all over the place, but appears to be pointed down for the moment. I can also see gold trying to make a recovery here, and oil on the downturn. But generally speaking, things look pretty even. Also, we got to remember that we got that Chicago PMI. So remember that one of the things that kind of really started all of this was when we got some manufacturing numbers. It used to be that those manufacturing numbers were really bad, and then we got a couple of them, like the New York one and the Michigan. I forget which ones, but there was two manufacturing reports that were really, really strong. Well, we're going to get the Chicago PMI today. That tends to be a pretty big number. That's going to be in about an hour. Remember that one gets released 3 minutes early to subscribers. Some people that subscribe to whoever it is that puts that report out. Not my subscribers. I wish, but so you will often see a little bit of a move beforehand, and the rest of the market doesn't catch it. So that's kind of where we're at. You saw an article about how recent trends in the Mormon Church have pushed out progressive Mormons. I don't know about that one. You'd have to find the link for that for me, because it's been but the church is very much I would say what would be accurate to say. I think that the church has been trying to make moves to try and be more moderate, essentially. But there was the whole thing about the family and marriage. The LDS Church is extremely firm on that one. So it's like, I don't know. If you can't hate gays, it's hard to say. And a lot of people get really bent up about that. So I remember one time when I was still dating, the LDS Church had made a decision that if the primary, like say you're divorced, and the primary parent that has custody of the kids is in a gay relationship, then the kid can't get baptized, was the policy that they made. And there was so much drama about it, man. I've got to tell you, people, it was like such a political thing. And the thing is I really don't think that when the church made that decision, they looked at it that way. It was very much a practical decision, because it really is like, if your parent isn't fully on board, then there's kind of almost no point in baptizing the kids, So, but people got so bent out of shape. And my wife, here's the thing, my wife was married to a gay man for, 10 years or whatever, and she knew before they got married that he was gay. And, and she was in all of the Facebook groups for members that are gay, or to have a spouse that is gay, and all of this sort of a thing. And her general conclusion is that it's like not worth trying, right? She's like, if I could go back, I would not have married him. Would have said, nope, I'm going to marry somebody that's straight. If you are the one true church on earth, you shouldn't get issues exactly wrong. Well, so I don't know if I really want to talk about, pull people away on religion, but you said something that I really just can't help but but comment on, right? So I think you're wrong on two sides on this. Number one, you're not wrong about the. I think that the church is right on this on its position in that the foundation of society is the family, and the liberalization of sexuality, and in particular to same-sex unions and transgender things and stuff like that, the cultural changes that they have tried to put on society have made things worse for families and children's, almost without question. And that doesn't mean that you should hate people, okay? But the church's position that the family is the most important thing and is absolutely correct. But on the second side, that if they're the one true church on earth, they shouldn't get issues exactly wrong. That's actually not true at all. The true church will get issues wrong from time to time, but it's never. How would I put it? Like you could get something wrong for a certain period of time, and then eventually you fumble around and you get it right. But in terms of what God's larger plan is for the world and so forth, is not matter. It's not going to matter. When you say a family, you say, yeah, I think that the research shows that children do better when they're in a family with a mother and a father. Yes. I think that the church got the issue, which the issue would be the statement that the church makes in the proclamation on the family is correct. That's my position. I think that a lot of people try to will really try to force a position on you on that, right? Bringing all the demographic intersections into his little inquisition. It's one of those things. It's just like what will happen is somebody will see something, like maybe a particular individual will do something, or maybe they just see certain things going on in the news, and then they'll project that onto the church and the larger policy when the proclamation on the family doesn't say gay people are evil and you should hate and kill them, and it says nothing of the sort, right? It just says that it's that a family should have a mother and father, and that's the best for children. Tell that to the dead Mormon. I can't take you seriously. You're gonna start saying dumb things like that, man. Come on. Yes. Okay, here's an example that would be like equally ridiculous, is that women, they're really, really picky, and they will reject a lot of men, and there are a lot of men who have killed themselves because of their rejection from women. And the suicide rate among men, particularly within that 16 to 25 30 age group, is particularly high, and is really like the most at-risk group of people for suicide. And so that would be like me trying to blame their suicide on all women. That's just as ridiculous because of the policy of women about how they go about dating or something. But that isn't because of a false harmful belief? Sure. I mean, those behaviors that would cause those sorts of things must have some sort of belief underlying them, right? The church's position that a person chooses their sexuality, that's not true. I'm sorry. There was, so I understand why you might say that, because there was some research at some point that kind of said, hey, maybe this is genetic, or like we can go in, we can look at that there are hormones that are different in gay people, or that there are brain structures that are different from gay people and straight people, and that research has since been discredited. So the scientific reality of that issue is that we really don't have an answer to it. But it is probably more likely to be extremely complicated, and that there are probably certain factors that would predispose a certain person to a certain kind of gender or orientation. And there could also be experiences and beliefs that might predispose a person to a certain kind of sexual orientation. A says correct your sexuality is in your genes. Nope, that's false. That hasn't been proven. That was discredited. It was straight up discredited. You're 10 years behind. See, what happened was you went back to the point at which you left the church and what the discussion was at that time, and it's like now it's like solidified in your brain that like that's the way that the world is, and the rest of the world moved on and continued to evolve their understanding, and you haven't kept up. So, not much. If you want me to believe something, sure, say it's discredited. Well, listen, do I ever just make shit up? Like, this is the thing that I find so mind-boggling and frustrating is like every time I bring up something like this, it's like, yeah, I don't just pull this stuff out of thin air. I didn't just sit here on the stream and decide, well, it would make sense if I told Ace that it was discredited. That would be a good argument to make, even though I have absolutely I've never seen anything that says anything about it being no. Okay. No, I read a lot of stuff. I read a lot of psychology stuff in particular. And this idea that it was genetic in nature was discredited by further research. And they basically said that they were basically making a conclusion that wasn't really based on the data. Like, you could go and you can say like this person has a different brain structure or hormones. You can't prove that was genetic. You have to actually show how the gene results in that change, and they didn't do that. And when they started to go into it, they found out that no, it's like we can't. There's no gay gene. They can't find the gay gene. So I don't just make this stuff up. But here's the thing. Like, I am so don't care about it. I'm not going to go and spend an hour or whatever, because a lot of this stuff is hard to find for some reason, right? If you went out and you searched for it for, an hour or however long it takes, and you did your research, you would see that I'm correct, that it's not so simple and that they have not found a gay gene. Okay? And I'm so confident in that I can just say, go and look it up. But I find it so frustrating that it's like anytime I say something, it's like, oh, you must be making that up. It's like, have I ever done that? Oh, I didn't care about either of my positions. Listen, there is no proven gay gene. That is just a straight up fact. And so here again, like, here's the thing. You have a belief. It's false. Maybe it's not necessarily based on the empirical evidence, but we do that all the time. But I also don't think that it is LDS doctrine that gay people choose that. I don't think that was ever made doctrinal. So that's another thing, is that you're projecting a belief onto them that they don't necessarily hold. Well, my claim is that sexuality isn't something that you pick. I said that there's no proven gay gene, and that probably the reality is that there are probably a collection of factors that might predispose you to a certain problem. But I shouldn't call it a problem like that. There's probably a litany of factors that would predispose you to a certain sexual orientation. Okay, like if you are abused as a child, if you are sexually abused as a child by a same-sex predator, then you're more likely to become gay, right? That is a environmental factor. So there's probably a large array of factors. Here we go. I didn't say that all gay people were abused, but if you were abused as a child by a gay person, you are more likely to become gay. That is just a straight up fact, Ace. Don't go and try and flip things around. This is the thing that I find really frustrating about you, is that you claim to come in and everything that I believe is based on evidence and logic and facts and stuff. But the simple fact is that you are not that guy. you okay? You're not autistic. Okay, that would be an autistic person. So even me, with being on ADHD and being on Ritalin, I'm way more logical than most people. But even I will get emotional and will have beliefs that aren't necessarily based on logic and fact. You insist that that's what the basis of your beliefs are, but then you consistently show situations where you don't do that. So here is a situation where I stated an empirical fact that being abused as a child increases your propensity to become gay. And what did you do? You went and you twist around. You didn't stick to the empirical fact or argue about that empirical fact. You instead went to hyperbole and took that idea to the far extreme to try and project an idea on me that I didn't say. The evidence shows that you're wrong. Okay. And then the thing and the reason why I'm not doing it this time is because I can count like a dozen times where you said something like this, and then I'll go and I find you the research, and you're like, and then you just ignore it like it never happened. Okay, here you go. Nature.com. Nature is a pretty good, well-respected, scientific, peer-reviewed journal. No gay gene. Massive study of Holmes in on genetic basis of sexuality. So that one right there, I said there is no gay gene. You're wrong. Let's see here. No, I don't want to know about I want to know homosexuality among child abuse victims. And let's see here. Here's a NCIH one. This one might not tell us much, actually. Our results suggest that the causal relationships driving the association between sexual orientation and childhood abuse may be bidirectional, may differ by type of abuse, and may differ by sex. Okay, so they're straight up, again, you're wrong. Here's a study that straight up says that there is a relationship, okay? So, maybe he's just trolling me, but come on. I didn't say I try to stick to saying something that's factual. Dave Velke says interesting research, no cap. Yeah, well, Yeah, you want to be very clear. That doesn't mean that all gay people were abused or something, or will abuse or something like that, right? I will you know, for instance, with my wife's ex, he was abused as a kid, and I totally think that was probably a significant factor in why he ended up becoming gay. Like, seriously. It's not his fault. It's an environmental thing that, you know, he didn't choose for that thing to happen, but it seems like that is like one factor. I think the idea that well, it's just so interesting because and I mean, I'm trying to bring us back into trading, right? There is a lot of things about our behavior and the way that we are, and particularly the way that our brains and our personalities work, that are very genetic. There's been a lot of recent research that really suggests that our minds that it's genetic, right? ADHD appears to have a genetic basis, and they have narrowed down at least 4 different genes that can increase your chances of being ADHD. And things like your self-control, how much self-control you have, that is controlled by chemicals and is genetic. But then there's so many environmental factors that get put on top of that. So when we try and ask this question, like, are people a blank slate or not? It's a question that's so complicated that we can probably never get a full understanding of it, you know? Because you're talking about something where there are probably millions of factors that affect how that thing comes out. Like, if I wanted to make a deterministic system, I put in all of the inputs and I'll know exactly what that person is going to come out like. It's going to have millions of inputs, right? Say CL down 1 spot 4%. I don't know. I don't. Well, okay. So coming back to the oil thing right here. I mean, you're picking up on something important. Here's oil. They did have a pretty big move overnight. I would say it is not a dramatic move. Okay. Here, let's come back. Treasury's still being pressured. Okay, so if we come into the news squawk open rundown, come down to the bottom, commodities. WTI and Brent futures are choppy, but trade with modest gains heading into the U.S. Open and into the run-up to Monday's OPEC meeting. European session thus far has been quiet from a news standpoint, but the contrast saw some fleeting upside after breaking above overnight ranges a bit. The momentum did not last long. Eyes turned to OPEC Plus commentary heading into the meeting, which is expected to be another smooth affair, according to Argus sources. As a reminder, the group is expected to stick to its plans to raise output by 400,000 barrels per day, despite outside pressure to further open the taps in a bid to control prices. Elsewhere, as a mild proxy for China demand, China's Sinopec noted that all LNG receiving terminals are to be operated at full capacity. WTI trades on either side of the USD $75, while Brent and its counterparts remain north of 78. So I'm not so when they wrote their thing, that big drop in oil hadn't happened, apparently, right? I didn't see anything on Twitter or anything that kind of suggested why it would be moving, but like when we look at the degree of the move, it's not enough for me to say like something crazy is happening, right? Technical correction in hindsight could be. Okay, so treasuries are kind of pushing down into some of these levels. So it seems to me, well, especially at 13.5, they skipped through it that very, very quickly, right? I don't know. I don't know if it's justified to just be like sell the treasuries, especially. So one of the things, part of the reason why I'm so focused on the treasury here at the moment is because we know it's like the last day of the month, and we tend to see buying and so forth in treasuries. So I'm kind of was in here looking for signs of like passive buying, and instead I'm seeing some signs of a large sell meta order. So I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Like, I would like to make a trade based off of it, but I'm not sure that I really can. Jake Sherman tweeting. Oh, by the way, didn't mention, but it sounds like that the House passed a government funding extension bill that does not include a raising of the debt limit that will be able to pass in the Senate. So that particular problem goes away. Pelosi and all of them are still saying that like the debt limit, that using reconciliation to pass the debt limit is out of question, but they're going to try like their next 2 or 3 bills. They're not going to pass that. I really don't see how they get away from having to pass reconciliation. That's good news. Yeah. Well, you notice that the we haven't seen some big move in stocks or treasuries based off of what was going on in Congress. Last time around, and especially the time before that, like the one at the beginning of Donald Trump's term, I remember the markets reacting to that one quite a bit, right? I think that the markets are saying it's all theater, which I think is the correct call to make. Like, the Democrats can do it on their own. They're just putting on a show for their constituents. If the economy goes down in gear, the dollar is rising, can the oil price will get heavy? Oh, that's okay. So you bring up an interesting point, because the dollar is strengthening a lot right now. Now, here's the thing. Look at when the time is coming, because the most of the rise in the dollar is coming during the European sessions and so forth. So I don't know if the rise in the dollar is some sort of clue that like a recession is in hand or anything like that. I really think that what's going on is that Europe is really worried about energy costs. They're really worried about inflation from energy costs. You can see, and here in the United States, we probably don't understand how they're feeling, because if you go into the UK right now, it's like the government is doing extraordinary measures to get gas to the gas stations so that people can still buy gas. And then they're concerned that like trucks and so forth won't get the gas. And so they won't, the supply chain will just shut down because the trucks can't move, right? Like, that's what's going on in the UK right now. Okay. And in broader Europe, they're like, well, you know, this is all their fault from Brexit and all of these things. But then in Europe, they're heavily dependent on the natural gas, and Russia completely controls that. And by the way, has been kind of limiting how much it goes out, because Russia needs it too. Because over there, they don't have the kind of natural gas infrastructure that we do in the United States. Or nor just the amount of it. We have so much of it here in the United States, right? So, and then on top of that, we've already formed a polar vortex in the north. And so this winter is expected, from what the meteorologists tell us, is expected to be very severe. It's expected to be very severe. So That's what's going on in Europe that we don't understand, right? So here's where you get this kind of this crazy thing that's like, okay, so when you factor all of that in, I would rather be in US equities than in European equities at that point, right? Which is a really big change, because if you had asked them 2 weeks ago about this, they were all, like, remember Jeffrey Gunlock saying, like, this is the first time in a while that I've bought European bourses, stocks in Europe and stuff like that. And now that narrative is completely flipped on its head. So you get this situation where the dollar is strengthening and the price of oil is going up. That's pretty unusual. And it kind of creates a really weird situation for us over in the treasury trade and the inflation trade, because the inflation trade would be buy gold, right? If we're going to experience inflation, persistently high inflation, typically you would want to get into gold. And gold hasn't been moving up. And a lot of people will say, well, the reason that gold isn't going up is because more people are buying Bitcoin these days. I don't think that that's actually the case. It looks to me like Bitcoin is mostly following the S&P 500, and that there's probably some margin and money printing over there. Okay, so why isn't gold working? Well, gold isn't working because interest rates are rising and the dollar is rising. So the question is, at what point does that break? How much inflation do you have to get before they say, well, the rising interest rate doesn't matter, gold is worth more, right? At what point does that happen? I think that in order for that to happen, you're going to have to see a move into gold, like retail traders really starting to take gold, which now that's where the Bitcoin thing kind of comes in, because a lot of retail traders are putting money into Bitcoin instead of gold, right? But I do think that at some point there's going to be this situation, because I don't think that Bitcoin can hold the prices that they have, not with the way that their ecosystem is going. So there's going to be a point where you're not going to want to get into Bitcoin, and retail traders are going to get panicked about gold. And when it happens, it's going to be very, very fast. So, I shouldn't say when, but if it happens, it'll be very, very quickly, right? Very much like with the interest rates here, where the interest rates rose all of a sudden and everybody was like, oh, what's going on? It's because they're misinterpreting the flows, right? So two things to get from this. Number one is just like, what are the economic pressures that are pushing all of these different assets? Like, what is the economic picture that we see today? Okay, so we got that one down. The second one is, it's important to understand why. Everybody keeps saying, okay, it moved up, it doesn't matter. It's not worth trying to find out why. Yes, it does. It absolutely matters, because if you are an informed trader, you always have an advantage. Nothing makes up for being the informed trader. Who do you think has the advantage? You, the person that you can see something going on in the tape and maybe they're doing something or maybe they're not? Or Alice, who has insider information and is making a trade based off of that because they know where it's going to go and they know that information is going to be made public soon and things like that, right? Alice has the advantage. Of course she has the advantage, right? That information is always advantageous. So if we're trying to make a determination about what the economic landscape is, when we see a move in a particular asset, we really want to know why. Because what if the treasuries are moving up and it's just because the Federal Reserve are buying too many treasuries? It doesn't actually tell us anything about future Federal Reserve policy, right? And so you got all of these people that they just say price is truth, and they were all getting long the treasuries right before they dumped. Even after the Federal Reserve said that they were going to taper, they were like holding on to it and fighting the down move. And then the down move came, and it was after it happened, it was like so obvious that like, oh yeah, because the Federal Reserve is going to taper, right? If you understand where the flows are coming from, then you can make that determination that it's priced in or it's not priced in, right? So here in gold, it's really, really important. So why is gold doing what it is? Well, it looks like that gold is moving most strongly in correlation to rising yields and rising dollar. As of right now, the dollar has been rising a lot. I mean, 94 is actually quite high for the dollar in this situation, right? When we were all expecting it to like plunge below 90 at the beginning of the year, you remember all of that? And now we're like at 94. It's like, what? Okay, but if the dollar weakened, if this kind of all turned around and the dollar weakened, then maybe gold could come back and get back to the 1800 very easily. Maybe. But gold is inflationary. Gold is not inflationary. Where do you get the idea? So I kind of have to understand. Sometimes you might be using words that are different from the words that I use, and I don't think that there's any point in trying to say like what is the correct way of saying things, but rather I would have to understand what is the vocabulary that you're trying to use. You mine gold, sure. Maybe I misunderstand. Okay, so how would we consider an asset inflationary or deflationary, you think? So like the dollar, I would argue that the dollar is inflationary. Although it's even more complicated than that, because the dollar you could make it inflationary or deflationary based on your interest rate policy. Bitcoin has a set amount forever? No. There's no difference there. Yeah, so to be I'm gonna Okay, I'm gonna give you this disclaimer at the beginning, just so that you kind of understand where I'm coming from. It sounds to me like you've been listening to some cryptocurrency guru that's selling you bullshit. Okay, you say that gold will continue to be mined for years. Bitcoin is being mined right now. Bitcoin has a set amount forever. There is an upper limit on how many Bitcoins will be out there, right? It's cool. I'm cool with being that's fine. The reason I'm saying that is because I think it would be really beneficial for you to understand like the what is the word where we talk about like the study of ideas, to kind of understand where these ideas come from and who's saying them and what their incentives and so forth are, right? Okay. There is a set amount of Bitcoin that after a certain number of years, all of the Bitcoin will be mined out and then there won't be new blocks anymore. And we don't know what Bitcoin does at that point, but that's kind of an interesting topic. But at some point, it's all going to be mined out, right? Okay. Gold is no different, really. There is only a certain amount of that element in the earth. There's an upper limit on how much gold can be mined out of the earth. And as we mine more of it, it becomes more and more difficult to find. Now, it's probably the case that people will be mining gold for a lot longer than they will be mining cryptocurrencies, right? That's true. But there is kind of an upper limit on it. Now, when I think about is something inflationary or deflationary, I'm kind of thinking, okay, if there is a recession, what happens to this asset? Right? So if there is a recession, Bitcoin tends to go down. There are less people out there to be able to invest into Bitcoin. It's a risky asset. People are less willing to take on risk during those situations. There's less economic activity, so there's less reason to go and buy the cryptocurrency for transaction reasons. And so for those reasons, I would say Bitcoin ends up being a deflationary asset. That means that when there's a recession, it deflates, right? It moves down in value. Whereas gold, is kind of a little bit different. Gold is seen as a place of safety, so it does something different. The dollar, they can control it, so they can take money out of the system or they can put money into the system based on whether the economy needs inflation or deflation at that time. So if we are having deflation, that is, we're having a recession and the value price of things are going down, then we're going to go and print more money. We're going to inflate the currency to counteract that. And then vice versa, what we're seeing now, when prices are starting to go up and are getting out of control, then we take money out so that the prices come back down, right? Gold moves in the opposite direction of the dollar generally, but not always. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like right now, the gold just seems to be moving with the correlations. And I think it's just because all of the gold bugs just expected us to be at like 2,000 right now. Now, the other side of it is that Bitcoin is generally deflationary because it's supposed to become more valuable over time, right? Whereas the dollar is generally considered inflationary because there's going to be more dollars printed over time, right? So over time, the supply, you got to think about it as supply, not like absolute terms. That's another mistake that I think people make, is they say, okay, like, here's how many dollars we have today, and here's how many dollars we have tomorrow. That means that there was inflation because there's more of them, right? But really what you would have to think about is there's all of these things that are kind of going up. Like GDP is always going up. So if GDP went up and the number of dollars in the system stayed the same, that would be deflationary, right? Because as the GDP increases, you're going to need to print a certain amount of dollars to keep up with that increase in the economy, right? So you really want to look more at the delta, first derivative of it, the change in dollars over time, right? So Bitcoin and gold, from that perspective, would be considered deflationary because as time goes on, the change in the amount of supply decreases. There's always new supply coming into the market, but over time it slows and slows, and that's actually more like this. It slows and slows and slows until at some point it will be zero, right? Right. Inflation is, in terms of economic activity, Japan prints a lot of money and still suffers from almost deflationary growth. Yes. Because the interesting, it's an interesting trap, isn't it? Because when you're getting deflation, it does make sense to print money to spur economic activity. But what we're finding is that the printing of the money does not necessarily spur enough economic activity to overcome the inflation. It's basically like the value of assets stays stable, right? So they print money. The price of things is supposed to stay the same, or at least you get the 2% year over year inflation or whatever it is, right? But it doesn't actually create the economic activity, at least not enough. You don't get very good bang for your buck with that kind of stuff. Probably the case is that, you need more effective stimulus. So like probably the most effective stimulus that you can get is just unemployment assistance. But beyond that, like, I think that it seems to me that there are problems that are preventing lower class people from being able to invest and create capital, essentially, right? Like, now is like the greatest time to go in and start a startup. So like, why aren't you going and starting a startup right now? Well, don't have an idea. There's too much risk. I got all these other things going on, right? If the government really wants to spur economic growth, they got to fix those problems, right? Like they've got to make it so the incentive for me to go out and start an entrepreneurial venture is just so strong that I would just be absolutely stupid not to do it. But the problem is that because of all these regulations and all these sorts of things, they don't get there, right? So I said a bunch of things there, but I don't think that I really provided like a really good, like clear way. Like if this was a YouTube video, that would be terrible. So let's put it this way. Whether an asset is inflationary or deflationary, I'm going to define it as the change in the supply of that thing over time. So the change in supply of Bitcoin is down because as time goes on, less Bitcoin is able to be mined, right? Whereas with the dollar, for instance, the change in the supply over time, it tends to increase. The number of dollars that you print increases every year. And they can modify that, but generally speaking, it goes up. So fiat currency is inflationary and cryptocurrency is deflationary. And that very much affects what will happen during a recession. So during a recession, Bitcoin tends to go down because of its deflationary nature. There's not as much economic activity out there, so there's less people out there able to buy Bitcoin, and it goes down. And because they can't print more or anything like that to spur economic activity, it just like becomes a spiral, right? Whereas with the US dollar, when that happens, we can change the supply. If the economic decreases, we can put more dollars into the system to spur economic activity. If the economy is increasing too quickly and is risking of having a blow off top, we can take money out of the system to bring things back, right? Now, people in Bitcoin, they don't like to think of it that way. Why? Because they don't want to deal with the fact that Bitcoin has gone down in the situations in which they supposedly should be the most useful. Like a worldwide pandemic, chaos, etc., etc. This was like, Bitcoin is a hedge against the dollar and all of these sorts of things. But when the pandemic happened, Bitcoin crashed. Bitcoin trades like a risk asset. So they try and get around that by trying to argue that Bitcoin is actually inflationary and these sorts of things. You get a t-shirt that says, I don't care about your Bitcoin. At some point, we're going to care about Bitcoin. It's just not right now, right? I think what happens, I'm worried that what happens is regulation comes in and puts a stop to Tether. And then there's a huge Tether implosion and Bitcoin loses 90% of its value. And then we get interested in it again because it's actually giving reasonable values. And at that point, I think a couple of weird things are going to happen. The first weird thing that will happen is that Ethereum will overtake Bitcoin as the largest market cap coin. I think it's at this point, it's almost inevitable that this will happen because, again, orders move markets. So if I have new money to put to work, why would I put it to work in Bitcoin versus Ethereum? Well, there's no real reason, actually, in reality. In reality, the only reason to put one in one way or the other way is what you think everybody else thinks about it, right? So like we kind of have to come up with reasons for people to make excuses as to why one currency is better than the other, right? And so the most reasonable thing that they've come up with is like how good is the technology itself? Better technology coin, better investment, more likely for it to work out for you, right? So that's the way that we go for it. And Ethereum, at the current time, has the most utility. It doesn't have the best technology. There's a lot of coins that seem to have better technology. That Solara one had a lot of promising things about it, but then what? It fell apart, right? Their network went down. Okay, but Ethereum at the current time has the best, ecosystem, most utility, and so it's probably inevitable after that point, without somebody pumping it up with a stable coin. Probably Ethereum overtakes Bitcoin as the highest market cap coin at some point. Okay. Number two thing that could happen is that central bank digital currencies will come along, and that will take a lot of steam out of the cryptocurrency world. So even though Ethereum might be the largest market cap one, there's just not going to be as much demand for it, because anything that you could do with the cryptocurrencies that was useful before, you'll be able to do with the central bank currency. The only thing that you won't be able to do with the central bank currency is, launder money and do illegal things, right? Which brings me to point number 3, which is that currencies that prioritize anonymity in private transactions, namely Monero, will become more valuable, because at that point, the utility will be provided by the central bank digital currencies. The underworld stuff will become more important, which will be a big problem for the cryptocurrency space, right? I think they kind of tend to dismiss the central bank cryptocurrencies, but man, I don't think people understand. Like, you come in, you create the central bank digital currency, and then you say, hey, look, everybody's just using this now to launder money with Monero. So you can't do that anymore. You can't exchange Monero for dollars anymore at Coinbase. Well, then what, right? You get completely cut off from the ecosystem. So those are kind of the problems that I see ahead for cryptocurrencies. And so in that situation, even though my indicator is going to say buy, and we're going to go in and we're going to buy in, it might not get as high as it's this year. Bitcoin is an idea, so ideas have no set value and can lose value totally. I would argue against that one, actually. The thing you got to remember with Bitcoin, the ability to make a transaction has value, right? Transactions have a lot of value. In fact, really, when you start to look at it, right, orders move markets, right? In a market, really, the transactions are the most important and valuable thing. That's what allows capitalism to be so effective, is because it facilitates transactions well. Communism doesn't do that. And that's where a lot of their problems come from. That up move. Oh, by the way, I have my robot on. Would he have taken trades? Maybe. Actually, he probably would have tried buying it. He probably would be in a great winner. No, he would have gotten out. He would have gotten out. Anyways, the ability to make transactions is valuable. So from that perspective, as long as you can make transactions with Bitcoin, it's going to have some value, right? It won't go to zero. It won't go to zero as long as the network is up. So, the transaction is valuable, but then the other side of it is that what people think about the asset matters too, right? Which is something that's very difficult to put a quantitative value on, isn't it? Okay, so by the way, the treasuries came all the way back from that down move, so I'm glad I didn't touch that. What's the difference between SPY and SPXL? I've never heard of XPXL. So here's what I'm going to say about this. If you want to, oh, that's a 3X. Yeah, okay. If you want to day trade and you want to day trade the index, it makes the most sense for a small retail trader to trade micro index futures. So basically MES. Basically, you want to trade MES. The going long SPY is like, why? You get less leverage. The useful thing about SPY is the options, and you can trade the options off of that ETF. Now you can do options in futures too, but it's a little bit different, right? So if I'm doing options trades and I'm hedging my other stocks and all, then it makes sense to use SPY, right? But otherwise, you day trading, why wouldn't you use the micro futures, right? Unless you just don't have enough money to trade the micro futures, and in which case, probably you shouldn't be day trading at all. You should just be saving up and practicing, right? Futures is better for day trading. Yeah, exactly. You can see, you get a better view of what everybody in the market is doing. You get better leverage. There are tax benefits, etc., etc. Oh man! So by the way, nobody's said anything. Do you see I got a little shelf in the background there? Yeah, it's not bad. I wish, so one of the things that disappoints me is that the background blurs so much that you can't really see what's back there. But I suppose it doesn't really matter as long as there's just something interestingly visual. You need some succulence on it. Oh man. Oh man, while I'm thinking about it, because Ace is back here, because I think that he was just having fun with me earlier. But if you ever come over, don't talk to my wife about that shit, right? Because she had a very poor experience with that whole subject, so probably better to just not talk about it around her. Anyways, yeah, I know that's funny. I put my wife put the stuffed animals on there. Like, I just moved some of the books over there and everything, and I was like, okay, I think this is good. This is probably good enough. And then she went and found a couple of other things and put it on there. I know that she was, yeah, it was really, the whole thing is just a little crazy. Which is, you know what I think is like the most interesting thing about it to me is like I look at her ex, for instance. There are a lot of things about that guy that he's like a really affable person. Like, he's friendly and social. I think that people tend to like him. Like there's some really great things about him, but then I think that there are some other things that happened in his life that kind of hurt him. So it's like, you know, it's hard to hate the guy, even though you know, he did some pretty awful things too. It's just the whole thing is just like, what do we really come out with from all of this? The world is more complicated than we can understand, right? Well, I always want to come in and say this is the way that the world is, and I understand it, and everything's perfect. I'm even trying to do that with here in equities, right? Like the elastic market hypothesis. Man, I can't tell you how much understanding that opens up the world in trading. I think it's just all of a sudden it's like, wow, opportunity is really everywhere. But it's not that simple. It's not like an elastic market hypothesis explains everything, because the reality is that the world is just more complicated than we have the ability to comprehend. We always want simple answers to things, and that's never the case. Everybody always says, yeah, keep it simple. Things should be simple. It's not. The world's not simple. The more you know, the more complicated you get. That was a pretty good downside there, huh? Well, I'm not sure I can make anything out of it. I am kind of looking over here at the Treasury futures and thinking maybe we can try going long here again. But I don't think I understand why they made that move. Especially when you consider the timing of it. Okay. And where were the deltas coming from? Okay, so there was actually a pretty solid meta order going through that whole time period, that whole hour, of about 20,000 contracts, and it was across the board, selling too, by the way, but mostly in the longer end of the curve. So probably some steepening here. So I think where our the calculus comes in for us is that there could be another sell meta order here in a bit, and we'd need to keep an eye on that, but that we could also get some risk off move in equities, which could move the treasuries up. Now, in 2 minutes, we're going to get the Chicago PMI number. A little down, a little further. Someone is panicking, maybe. Sure, no one is perfect, and he's out of these kids. What do you miss? Yeah, but the good thing about it is that I don't, I think that the kids enjoy being over here more, and I would rather have them be over here more. But he is not like some deadbeat or something like that. You know what I mean? He's a pilot. He's still a reasonably intelligent person, and it's just a weird situation is what it really comes down to. But from my perspective, I kind of approach it as like, it's probably better that I just don't know him very well. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but yeah, I think it turned out pretty well for my wife, don't you think? Turned out really well for me too. Like she went through some hard stuff, but then all of that we were really able to turn to our advantage in the end. So okay, we got about 90 seconds here. I can feel myself getting a little like wanting to do something now. I don't think that that's necessarily based on the market conditions, though. Interesting that gold is having this little move up. I guess it's not that significant in the larger scheme of things. If I come back on a volume profile, well, it's retracing yesterday's move. Her ex would be strangely attracted to your thin wrists. You know what? For some reason, when I was like in the rave scene, I had been approached on numerous occasions. Somebody thinking that I was. Oh, it is weird. I've had gay people come on to me more than once. Getting mad. I know I really am. Probably saying more about it than I should. Probably shouldn't talk about it on stream. You're right. Why is it that because the funny thing is when I was thinking about it this morning, I was like, what? I should probably try and keep things focused more on either markets or being fun, because nobody wants to be around, down, and I can be way too serious, right? You want to be fun to be around. And then when I'm talking about that doesn't make me fun to be around. So I'm thinking about that. And then what I do, I let myself get dragged into that conversation. Oh, man. And that handsome jaw. Thanks. Jeez. Okay, so we did get the move. I wasn't really paying attention, but I didn't really see them react. So that might mean that Chicago PMI is probably going to come in at 65. It's probably going to match. So, I wonder. You know what? I'm way better looking bald than I thought I would be. I'll tell you that much. Like, I just kept I tried to keep the hair as long as I could because people liked my hair. It was like in the 90s, it was like the trendy thing to have blonde hair that you could spike out in the front, right? Like it was the thing. And after I lost it, I was like, I have nothing. But then they shaved my head, and it turns out that my head shape and everything else not so bad for bald. So it worked out. And being bald is just much more convenient, I think. Frosted tips. Well, I mean, I didn't have to frost the tips. I just had bright blonde, naturally blonde hair. You could shave too. Well, I try to keep myself with like a 5 o'clock shadow kind of look, because otherwise there's just not any contrast to my face. Frosted tips. This is like Linus Tech Tips guy. He did all of those stuff when he was in his younger years. He had the frosted tips and the pierced ears and stuff. It's funny looking at his earlier videos compared to him now. Okay, so the PMI came at 64.7. Curious. So yeah, the market doesn't seem to care. We used to use that word to mean anything weird. It really was used to be a derogatory thing, right? It's probably, I remember even as a kid that it was considered insensitive and offensive to call things that. So I think that it was a good thing that kind of left the lexicon. News Squawk tweets, that moment when you realize that you hear more from Fed officials than you do your own family. Gosh. Sure does. We sure have gotten a lot of stuff from. You know what's interesting is that before the Federal Reserve announcement, it was like we were getting a lot of information, and it was like really meaningful stuff, and like nobody cared. Now it's like we're getting a lot of information, but like they're just not telling us anything because we already know. That they're not really giving any new info. Joe Exotic couldn't have helped either. I don't know what that means. My wife's uncle is a mid-50s divorcee that has a cash-only construction business and a bookie side hustle. He's a frosted tips guy, and we dog on him for it all the time. Oh man, I saw a video the other day when you weren't here, Uzi, where a guy was trapping an alligator in a garbage can, and I was like, oh, that must be a video of Uzi. It was pretty. I mean, it was a small alligator, but it was pretty funny. The Fed can't tell the truth, which is that we're basically. I wouldn't say that, but there's this interesting thing going on with the Fed. So, on one hand, they're doing the right thing. Let me think about this for a second. Okay, so like the Fed's mandate is maximum employment and price stability. So particularly after a pandemic, you get this huge deflationary pressure that comes in. Yeah, you're supposed to lower interest rates, print money into the system, spur investment so that prices remain stable. And when we look at over time, like since I've been watching the markets, it actually appears to me that like the Federal Reserve's efforts to maintain price stability is actually like almost too effective, at least on the things that are like that like CPI and everything is based on, right? There are some things that it doesn't seem to show very well. Like we're getting like crazy rent inflation. So if I do not see an increase in housing cost in the next CPI number, I'm just going to go like ballistic, because I'm reading all of these headlines from the news that they're having 10% rent increases, and then the CPI number says that it's not happening. Like, what? Okay, but that aside, we haven't been getting the inflation the past few years, and even though the Federal Reserve has been printing. So, and the thing that you always keep hearing people say is like, oh, we're going to get hyperinflation, or you get this problem or that problem. Well, no, it doesn't. That's not the case at all. They have to print, otherwise, like, things would be dismal. It would be like everything would be dirt cheap and you wouldn't have any money to do anything with it, even though everything was dirt cheap, right? So on that front, it's good. But on the other front, we're not really getting the growth, are we? I'm not so sure that that's really actually the Federal Reserve's fault, to be honest with you. I think that a lot of it is policy. And people aren't able to make some of the capital investments. People at the bottom of the rung of the ladder, they're not able to make some of the capital investments that they should be able to, right? And I think that that's what's holding us back right now. Now, the split side of that is that there are negative consequences from that money printing. And one of the negative consequences is that people feel the need to invest more, right? Like if they're printing money and interest rates are historically low, then that means that I'm going to have to save up more in order to be able to retire, because I'm not going to be able to get very much from fixed income living, right? And that means more money going into investments and less money actually being spent on consumption, and probably less money going into more entrepreneurial in ventures, right? And so you continue to get this thing where it's like you have to do that thing to keep the prices from dropping, but it also kind of digs a hole that's hard to get out of. Now, it seemed to me that before the pandemic, we were on a pretty good track. And I really would have liked to have seen the issue with China and trade resolve itself, because that's also a really big problem. That's such a big problem. We just don't talk about it anymore. But yeah, we get a fixed trade with China, right? But otherwise, it looked like we were on a good trajectory, and it looks like you can't get it out. But now that the pandemic has happened, I don't know. It seems to me that at some point you're going to have to see some sort of a comeback, like stock prices are too high, from all of these valuation perspectives, and so they're going to have to go sideways or have like a really big correction at some point. And that correction, it'll probably just be a correction. It doesn't have to mean like the end of the world though, right? So I don't think it's the case that like they're screwed or that the Federal Reserve is like trying to hide something. It's just they're doing the best they can, and that's never perfect, right? It's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be something about monetary policy to complain about, right? The world is complicated. Wow. Bloomberg tweets, could the energy crunch get so bad that oil prices hit $200 a barrel? One options trader thinks so. There was a large options trade out. How big was this? Hello, AO. How are you? Okay, $130,000 wager on oil. Okay. In a market where a single cargo of crude would fetch about 160 million, the $130,000 wager on oil reaching an all-time high is tiny. However, it reflects the fact that a growing number of options traders are betting that an energy crunch this winter may see prices rip higher. You know, I think it's probably is the case that energy prices are just going to like get way out of control. But we should just remember that all of these guys are taking that trade, because if something happens, like if the weather flips and all of a sudden it ends up being a mild winter or something, that trade is going to collapse so hard. Why are we even trading with China at all? I don't know. You tell me. My trade has been disclosed. Oh, that was AO made that trade. Oh, man. It's a bit more complex than the weather outlook these times. Well, that's the thing, is it seems to me that because of the polar vortex and all of that, they're pretty confident that it's going to be a bad winter. They're pretty confident that it's going to be a bad winter. And there is gas scarcity. And the thing that's kind of crazy about it is that there's not a whole lot they can do about it either. Right? Like there's only so much oil infrastructure out there. So, but the thing that I find frustrating about it, particularly in Europe, is like this was all avoidable. Like if you guys had just decided to continue developing nuclear energy technology, it wouldn't be a problem. Probably nobody's ever going to tell you that, because the liberals are just absolutely hate nuclear for some reason. Almost all of the reasons that they don't like, that they think that they don't like it, are all false, but there must be some other political incentive going on there, because it's just crazy that not even the politicians with all the access to the information and everything can't make the determination that they really need to invest in nuclear energy. But still, it seems like a lot of people are picking up on the trade. At least a lot of traders are picking up on the trade. I'm not seeing like the general public pick up on the trade, but a lot of traders are picking up on the trade. So, you know, it would only take one thing to not go right to destroy that trade, and it could come back fast. So we should just remember, it's probably the correct trade, but it's starting to look crowded. Just like here in the Treasury, like before the Federal Reserve number, like higher interest rates was coming and it wasn't priced in. Now that we've had this huge increase in interest rates, we should be looking at this and saying, oh, this looks a little crowded. And I think that's kind of a little bit of what's going on, is you get these little intermittent moves down and then it pops back up. So especially on a day like today, where it's the end of the month flows coming in, you know, like it's probably actually a better trade long. Although I don't, you know, like that move down, we had that strong move down. I you know, that would have been a really great place to get in. I wasn't really looking at it because, well, maybe part of the timing, but yeah. There was never a point where I said, I think maybe I might want to take it here, and thought about it and talked to myself. That never happened. I just ignored it the whole time. So I didn't see it this time. But I think that if I was going to make a trade, that it probably should have been buying it down in here. The E-mini is also incredibly constrained today, wouldn't you say? I suppose there is a lot of important data tomorrow, and since the Chicago PMI didn't do anything. Another thing that I should point out is that, sometimes when we get a piece of news like that, often it's like they're just waiting to see what that news is. And then once that risk event is done with, then they go in and they start processing the orders that they had for the day. But that doesn't appear to be happening. I'm not really getting some huge meta order coming in the last 15 minutes. The markets have all just kind of gone into like autopilot. Anyways. So, what I think you was talking about earlier about like often we think that what we're saying is evidence-based and empirical, and it's not. I think the reason it comes down to that so often is because our minds are just not sophisticated enough to really comprehend the complexity of these situations. And that includes both the range and factors that create human behaviors and what the market is doing, right? So when you're faced with a situation like that, you basically have no choice but to come up with something that is not necessarily logically based, right? Otherwise, because it's either that or you have to just admit that your actions are random, right? Because if you don't really understand it, then how can your actions be intentional, right? And humans want to have purpose in their life and everything that they do, so they don't want to say that their actions are basically random, even though that might be very much the case, especially in markets. Like most retail trading is noise trading, right? Like they don't actually know anything that would predict that is going to go up or down. If you really do the stats on their strategy, they doesn't really turn out that it's an effective strategy. All they're doing is taking random trades and trying to manage the risk on it. And you can make money that way, but that's not the game that you want to play. You don't want to be the noise. That's the noise trader. Nobody wants to be the noise trader, because that means there's no purpose in what you're doing. It's just random. So that's maybe why we come up with these, why we have a tendency to default to many of these things. And maybe I would be doing, in fact, I think earlier on in my trading, I did a lot of that because I didn't have that edge. I didn't understand the market well enough to be able to say. Now it's like, I do understand the market, and part of my purpose is to help other people understand that about markets. And because if everybody understood that about markets, markets would probably be more effective. Dave is along ES. Well, if I had to place a trade, I probably would be long. The ES didn't quite go down quite enough for J to take a trade. So I don't know. I'm wondering if the treasury here is going to go to the highs. That might happen. They're touching the open quite a bit. And the open is pulling, and they all look lined up correctly. Seeing some great sales programs again. What do you mean by that? What the heck? There's a guy in Discord show up today named Large Load Larry. Ah, oh, you made some money today, Dollar, huh? I see that in Discord. Good job. No, it was an ES trade, so it was, only got. At first I thought that was an MES trade. I was like, holy crap, 225 on a micro? What? Not quite that amazing, but still pretty good. Still pretty good. I need to engage large. Can we talk about, since I've already done a bunch of things in this stream that would probably turn off some people, can we talk about this situation in Discord? Oh gosh. So there's this guy in Discord. Or it's Seven. Don't tell him I'm talking about him. He doesn't need to come in. So here's the thing with Seven. He posts a lot of trades. I don't know if they're good trades or not, but like he just seems really active, right? So you got somebody that's pretty active. So that's the first thing that I got to think about is like, okay, people come into the Discord, and they're thinking about, do I want to stay here or not? One of the things is who's there? Do I enjoy being around these people? And one of the biggest people that you're going to be around and that you're going to be interacting with is Seven Law. Well, here's the thing. I've seen him say some really stupid shit. Like just really stupid stuff. Okay. Like we had this one time where him and Jack got in a fight. And so I told them to take it to the horse. And so they had an argument in the horse. And we actually like pinned some of the funniest stuff in the horse. So like I look at the pinned posts and he said they were arguing and he said, well, over time we won't be on the same level. I'll graduate to insane levels of knowing and everything I say will just become esoteric crazy talk to you. I'm adding the to you part because he didn't put that in there, but of course everybody was laughing about it because everything that he's saying, it seems like esoteric crazy talk. So it's just like, I think that Seven and Jack are hilarious. I mean, I kind of enjoy it too, but I'm also concerned that it would turn off people, right? So then they were making fun of him for calling himself so intelligent, and he says, dude, my IQ is 130. It's like, he probably took an online test and it said that he was 130. If I take those online tests, they say that my IQ is like 130, 140, but I highly, highly doubt that that's what my IQ is. My IQ is probably 100, maybe slightly above that, depending on whether or not I take Adderall and they give me extra time to do the test, right? And I prepare for it. Yes, some are disaffected by it. I think that some are. So kind of the issue is that what will happen is Seven Law will come in and will say something dumb. He'll either say something dumb or he'll make a dumb trade. And then Jack just is like, the thing that he doesn't like is if there are people saying stuff and they're not good traders. And I haven't seen anything to see like, is he a good trader or not? It seems like Jack is mostly just trying to have fun, right? But like I share his concern. Like I don't want it to be like the most active person in the Discord is a terrible trader or something like that, right? He's not the most active, but lately he's been pretty active, right? So I totally get where Jack is coming from. So Jack will say something rude, which probably he shouldn't do it, but like it's enough on the edge that I try to be as hands off as I can about it, right? Like the way that I have found moderating works best is there's no gray areas. So you give them the benefit of the doubt on most activity, but then if they do something that is clearly against the rules, the hammer comes down so hard that nobody would ever even think about trying to do that thing again because they know they'll get banned too. Because the thing that I've seen in a lot of communities that really screws you over is like you set a rule and then for one person you don't enforce it, and then all of a sudden it's like the rule doesn't exist anymore. Or on the split side, you start punishing, or you start closing threads and doing things when nobody did anything wrong. That one's almost just as problematic, right? But almost the other way, because then that just kind of says to people that it's not worth engaging in this place because it's not a safe place to talk. So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So it's like, Jack is being an asshole. He probably shouldn't do it, but he's not doing anything extreme enough that it breaks any rules or anything like that. And then Seven like gets so triggered about it and complains about it. So he turns around and he will complain to me. Like he message me like I'm being harassed. And what am I supposed to do? Don't say stupid stuff. I mean, like, come on, you know? Well, you have to have free speech too. Yeah. So it's like you can't win either way, I feel. but I kind of, so the thing was I kind of didn't do anything. Like when they had the big bout in Discord, like when was that? Let me go back. The horse pinned messages. That was back in April, right? So that happened back in April, and I thought, well, this guy is gonna quit, right? He's gonna go away, and it's still there. So now I'm sitting here like maybe I'll have to do something about it. So I keep thinking, like normal circumstances, somebody does something pretty quick that allows me to justify banning them or whatever the deal is. You know, that they actually do break the rule eventually. But it hasn't happened. Oh, that's interesting. Jay actually did take a long, but he got stopped out first. Ah, that sucks. Oh yeah, no, that was totally the right thing though. I don't know. So watching the ES here, something I'm finding interesting, like that last down move seemed pretty bearish to me, right? But then you really look at it and it's not really doing much of anything. It's pretty mixed. You know what I mean? It's pretty mixed. What the hell is Trading Floor Audio talking about here? Zero Het GovTrader got a resume today, and under personal interests, the applicant wrote boozy brunch. What? What is that? Is this some new trend I'm not aware of? Visa working on a blockchain interoperability hub for crypto payments. That must mean when you are working and you go out for lunch and get drunk for an hour and then go back to work. That must be what it means. By the way, the treasuries, I should have reset this a long time ago. Treasuries still just kind of chilling there at 16, which was the open. Dave Portnoy says I'm being shadow banned everywhere. Excuse me. See, only Dave cared about the thing in Discord, and even then he didn't say that much about it. So I guess that means that it's really not a very big deal, and I shouldn't worry about it too much. What we should talk about is what should I put on my shelves back there, because you know, I could probably go and get and put just about anything on there. Although the problem is that like most things you're not really going to be able to tell what they are because it's blurry. The bokeh. What do you think? What do you think? By the way, did I get the camera set correct here? So like if I come to camera, I had to put like the grid lines on. It's okay. It's okay. Now I almost had the whoever is long, yes, is toast. Oh, that was weird. It looked like the messages changed, but it didn't really actually. No, so I almost had my scrolling marquee board too. But what happened was I got it all soldered together and everything. So I thought, okay, now all I got to do is put the program on it and it'll work. But the program was written for a different board, and apparently the boards are different enough that the code doesn't port. So I don't know what I'm going to do about it, because I tried starting to fix the compilation errors, and it was not working. It was like I would search for this thing, and there's like nothing out there about it. It's like I don't know where that constant came from. What is, you know? Dave says he's going short on ES now. I kind of, feel bad. I come out another day without having taken any discretionary trades, not even sim ones, but I'm just not seeing the reason to take a trade here. The only thing is maybe I could get away with a trade between 15.5 and 16. I don't know. Facebook is scheduled to testify at a Senate hearing today about its product's effects on young people's mental health. Oh, Powell and Yellen are testifying on Capitol Hill again today, I guess. Carl Quintilla retweets Josh DeMasi, who says, "I'm starting to look for a word longer than transitory but shorter than permanent." Yeah, do not trade Yellen and Fed Chair testify. I don't know if I guess they're going to be asked questions and stuff. It is going to matter and hold them back from trading. So maybe we should just stay hands off. Trying to think where some things we could maybe we could do some writing here. Oh no, that's interesting. Was my list really the broker data one, and then next we were doing DOM basics? I finished this as futures trading for you one. That's also an important one that we got to do. I'm gonna need to pull up Evernote. So I was kind of thinking, like, okay, if we really want the channel to take off, you've got to make videos that people want to click on to get to the front page. Evernote always has to freaking update. I hate it. I hate that. Oh, it's going to auto restart, huh? Oh yeah, we got to do the pre-stream video. I did kind of write something for that though. The marketer says the equity market, the new bond vigilantes. I wish I could read that. Maybe I should subscribe again. Cool. Evernote now appears as an option in your notifications management menu. Cool. Oh, they have it coming soon. Cool. All right. Planning. Videos. So I have data platforms, DOM basics, reading the DOM. Then I also have one that is like TA is a waste of time in elastic markets. What else do I have on my list? Oh, that health tips video. I don't know if that one would actually be that good. You guys did say that you were more interested in that. How to get around the pattern day trader rule? I think that once I get back into making videos more regularly, that a lot more ideas would be coming to me as I knock off certain video ideas. But I think that the most important thing is I got to get. So I did record one of them on the weekend. So today and tomorrow I need to make sure that I get it edited so that it will be ready for you guys to view on Monday. But I should review the script for that one to make sure that it's all okay. But then the next one would be the DOM basics. And the issue with that one is that I have to set stuff up for it again. So I don't know. I'm going to have to go and look at schedules, I guess, see 2 weeks out if I can actually do that. That or I got to convince Ace to come over. If I can convince Ace to come over and watch the baby. Or maybe my parents will do it. Probably this weekend I should seal the driveway, I think. I think that's what I'm going to try and do. I'll call my mom today. Maybe in the morning, in fact. Okay, they do look like maybe now they're going to go for the highs. So the thing is that the E-mini hasn't been able to dig itself out of this funk. I guess I wouldn't call it a funk, but yeah, it could just be because of the Capitol Hill testimony, though. AO says everyone should be out of the ES. I suppose. Oh, I still got about 40 minutes left. I'll tell you what, we'll take a for fun trade over here in ZN. Because that looks like some pressure. That looks like they're going to go up to the highs. Okay. Guess Schumer's talking right now too. Oh, I missed it too. I guess that was one where I should have just market bought into it. And you think that we could go through 18? I don't know. The clip that they're trading it, I think that they might. Well, let's see if they tick up if anything happens. Only about the usual amount of pulls. It looks like a couple of people pulled there thinking, oh, now this is going to go to 20. Oh, yeah. Look at it. All pulled. That all pulled. Okay. Do you think that they're pushing up there because they are smelling some equity weakness? I still see gold moving, by the way. Lewis is in gold. Well, since the yields are decreasing here, I suppose that could be part of helping gold, but it looks like gold has a bid out there beyond just that, huh? Trajectory in the 6J looks pretty supportive for the treasuries moving up too. Wow, you got in it late and you're still up over 3,000? Good deal. Off of a $25 move? I forget what the size is in gold. Isn't it like $10 a dollar? Oh, you got 10 contracts on, okay. Is it making that sound because it wants to try and put the stops on, and I'm doing it more liberally right now, so. You got it in 1747? Well, who's to say how far that's going to go? Actually, we can game it out a little bit because, well, it's already done it. I was going to say we could make the determination that it's going to go further than yesterday, but that doesn't tell me much about how much, especially since I don't really know what's what's the kicker here, right? I should say that this move up in gold does seem a little unusual and could be a sign of a new trend in gold, maybe. But since in this situation, I'm not really the informed trader, I'm only going to take one off of that. In fact, actually, who knows? We'll see. I might just pull that. As long as the yen doesn't do anything crazy and the dollar stays in its range. Marketeer tweets gold, found gold, question mark? Yeah. Okay. Oh, we get the oil report now, right? EIA natural gas change. 6,000 can take it. Good job then, dude. I wish I could say like I was in on that gold, you know, like no, it was all you, bro. It was all you. But you don't have any idea why it's making the move that it is, huh? Maybe it's because we were talking it up so much this morning. Binance hires a former IRS agent who worked on some of the digital asset economy, debt ceiling, and more. Okay. Oh, well, some of the world's most high-profile probes. You helped me decide to get out when you mentioned the last time. Yeah, well, we're well beyond. I would just, like, at 1740, we had a spot. I'm sure that we're going to be coming up into one here soon. You know, an area where there's just a very apparent lack of liquidity. This is what I'm typically looking for, right? Cool. That was only, you know what, so like 10 minutes ago, I was going like, well, it's getting kind of quiet. I don't know, market's kind of, is this the greatest day? Definitely did see some people go like, oh, okay, nothing's going to happen. But that's only was 10 minutes ago. That was only 10 minutes ago. So like, yeah, we still got time here. And I don't know, this uptrend in the treasury could turn, because there's almost certainly these end of month rebalancing guys out there. Probably these guys that got to sell stocks and buy bonds just because they need to maintain that 30-70 allocation, right? The move in gold is definitely more interesting, though. I don't know, man. What is the deal with that? Now, at the same time, here in the treasury, they didn't quite keep their momentum. This could be a slow mover though. I think if you're really, if that, given what we think it is, you might be it might be a slow creeper. Good to live by. If your trade gives money, it's good to take it because they love to make losers of all traders. Definitely get a propensity where it seems like when it's a move that you made money on that will retrace deeper. Yeah. Sure feels like that sometimes. On this one, I really wish that I had moved one of my orders up. I was thinking about pulling it and I didn't. I should have pulled that. That would have helped a little bit. The dollar looks like it's selling. It is a little bit, isn't it? Hmm. Yeah, and did move down there. Bob Lang being retweeted by the street says probably one of the nastiest and most volatile quarterly expirations we have seen for some time. I don't know if I would say it's that 20-point range. I don't know. That's not that unusual these days. Okay, so that was not what we wanted. So I'm just going to take the 1 tick loss on it and be out. Spy painting a bigger sideways pattern than my ES chart. I mean, at the moment, it kind of, I think I would maybe still be slightly biased to the upside. Like, we did get a little bit of oversold conditions and it's moving up. I think there's, I don't know. It can be hard to feel it sometimes in ES without me like really watching the numbers, but it kind of feels like less volume today, right? I actually don't think that's the case. Like the AMA relative volumes is has 124. I don't know, man. Over here in the treasury, it kind of looks like the upside buying fizzled out pretty quickly. You did get it very strongly in the 5-year. So some more of a steepening trade. But I'm thinking, hey, if I really wanted to take a real trade, that 535 might be okay. Long. Just those like that those 6Ks is 17.5 and 8 and 18. And the yen kind of turned down more significantly. That and the E-mini, I don't know. It could very much change if the E-mini decides that it's just going to be a bearish day now. Then maybe the break of 35.51 like changes it, right? Okay, well, that was a stop run if I ever saw one. Oh, that was a stop run. Think that they just... Do you see somebody stacking the big order there? I don't know. Treasury's still down. Treasury did not react to that. In fact, they're slightly higher. 535 looks really nice now, doesn't it? That's the one we should track. I was just to say, I don't know if it's worth it for me to get in a trade with like 20 minutes left, but let's say we got 535, we want 545. I think that that's realistic. Can you talk about a little bit about your synthetic dollar, just how accurate it is? So it is using the futures data, and I don't get ICE data, so I can't compare how well it does to like what the ICE dollar index does. But it is accurate to what the futures data is doing. And it looks like that the futures data matches everything else really, really well. So I'd say it's very accurate. Even though I can't like prove or show that to you, but is that an acceptable answer? I definitely find it useful. I mean, I just don't understand how can we be trading stuff if we don't know how the value of the thing that the currency that we're trading in is changing. That affects everything that we touch. Okay, so So Powell is saying some stuff in Congress that wasn't anything new. It does look tilted to the upside. Oh, sure, it's useful. You want to look at the currency of the market you're trading. Yeah. So, I put it, one of the things is that when I made that, was, could have been a free indicator, potentially, right? But there was enough little oddities in there that I had to stick in that I felt like I should make it something for your subscribers. Plus, it's just like really key useful. So, like, one of the big problems is that you're using bar data. You don't. How do you determine what to calculate it off of, right? Because the dollar index itself might have had a really different high and low than the high and lows of all of the individual currencies. And how do you sort that out? Because this currency could have been at its high when this one was at its low or at its other high, and that would have changed the calculation, right? So I had to add some stuff in there to handle it differently based on if it was historical or live. And that's kind of where a lot of the complexity in that one comes from. That and just managing so many data series. That and the market depth tape are the two most useful indicators in that whole package, I think. I also think that all of the level 2 histograms are really useful, but we just haven't done deep enough study on it yet to really see how effective they really are. Okay, so the treasuries, they were looking like they were going to move for a bit there, but they kind of backed off a little too easily. Oh wow, this guy was able to turn a little animation of his Dom into a gift and post it in the Jigsaw Discord. That's cool. Yeah, I tell you what, it's a slow moving day. I expected more activity than this today. What about you guys? So I noticed one of the things is that there's definitely a correlation between market activity and number of people watching the stream. Stream's been a little light lately. Like, we still get up into the 20 and 30s, but after about 8:30, we tend to be like only a dozen or so viewers. So what about you guys? Were you expecting the market to be very active today? Stick says I just got here. Well, we're glad to have you, Stick. I think overall the channel is probably not getting as recommended as much to people because I haven't been putting very many videos out. So I need to do better there. It's all my fault. It's all my fault, folks. I don't make videos enough because I'm watching the baby on the weekends. I think the Bears are running today and will continue dropping, yes. Okay, so what do you think is going to create that future selling order flow? I'm thinking the one flow that I expect to see today is people buying treasuries and selling equities for the quarter and month end rebalancing. Definitely see it happening in the treasury. I suppose that the action that we're seeing in ES could be that. Nah, with the Yellen and Powell speaking right now, the people might not be wanting to take on as much risk for sure. Plus, there's some big numbers tomorrow. Oh, Lewis's comment must be about the stream that most traders use charts, not what you use. So if you add some regular charts, they would attract. Yeah, probably. But then at that point, it's like, what do I care about more? Right? I want to be able to go back and watch the video and see the order flow. That's the most important thing. Otherwise, I could just show a chart, because there are definitely some people out there that they just have a chart of the S&P 500 and everybody eats it up, right? Like, there are some streams that are quite popular that nobody says any, like, there's chat, but the person doesn't say anything. It's just a chart of the S&P 500. I don't know. The Treasury and Fed speaking together speaks volumes regarding Fed independency. I don't know. I mean, that's always the way it's always been. I never really thought too much about it. It's kind of always that this event has kind of always been a thorn in my side, because I can't remember a time where something consequential came from it. You know, like, I get it. Like, they need to testify regularly and account for what they're doing and everything, but like, nothing happens. The politicians never tease new information out of them. It's just political theater, you know? But the market still is afraid of them saying something, and I don't know. VWAP on the 15-minute chart is steep. That's not the kind of answer I was looking for, Dave. What's going to create the future order flow? That's a current piece of information. How's that current piece of information going to make flow happen? It's not, right? We need a reason why there's a flow, like somebody's processing some sort of a transaction and they're not done. It looks like the people that are buying on the rebalance aren't done. Probably, maybe we just go up all day from here. I guess that pullback was a little bit deeper than I thought, and I think that primarily came from the Japanese yen. Well, I suppose that the Japanese yen flipped back up with the treasuries as well, so Mr. Top Sept tweets, whoever takes the other side of the trade today will have to sell futures to hedge, theoretically. The buys of the options have been selling thousands of futures this morning and continue. It has been mostly selling in the futures. Wouldn't say that it's an unusual amount, but I don't know. It sure does look like a nice trade there in the treasury, doesn't it? I mean, it's maybe a little bit too late, but Okay. Not getting filled. Are the yields frozen from all the volume that is coming into those markets? I don't know. I mean, is there really that much volume coming into it, though? I don't know. At the moment, the treasury is just matching the moves in the dollar yen almost exactly. Yeah. Okay. That already going to go higher, huh? That right there. Oh, I missed it. I was going to say you buy that 19. 19, get out at 19.5. Too late now. If you're going to be at the back of this line, I don't think it's worth it. Danny, first time? But you've commented on videos before, right? Your name seems familiar to me, Danny. Well, welcome to the stream. Glad you could make it. It's kind of late. Like, we usually end at 9 o'clock, but... Oh, look, maybe you could have gotten it. Okay. The 20 is a little bit more questionable because it's the large order, but it looks like that buying flow did come through. I'm glad that I kind of held off. Remember I was saying like maybe 535 because it was coming back? But, you know, it was contrary to the flow that I was expecting to see today. In the end, we did get that flow, right? We really should have been selling it when it was all the way back up here. ES is still moving down. Well, I think that what we'll tend to see is that the ES will continue to sell today and the Treasury will continue to buy up from the end of month rebalancing. It could be the case that this is kind of a slow burner and that it will get a little bit more active later in the day. $19.5. I should have done it. The second trade. I only took the first one to be like, you know, balance things out. Because I made, oh, you know what? I don't have, do I not have the, oh, holy cow. Trading, and no, it's an under appearance. Trade column, include closed P&L. I didn't, so I actually made more on that first trade than I thought. Cool. Jay hasn't been doing so good today, though. He keeps going long and getting crushed. Pelosi says, I think we're in a good place right now. We're making progress. I can't stay here too long because I have to deal with step by step with things. I'm only envisioning it, taking it up and winning it. Okay. Volatility adjusted DOM. Huh. We're talking about that in the Jigsaw chat room.
Block by.
Anyways, the new office we opened up was in Lahore, Pakistan, of all places. I got sick of attempting to outsource to India. One of our current employees was being paid $900 a month by a company. We were paying for his work. I don't know. Told that later on, but his starvation wages I chanced upon a guy in Pakistan. He was very good. Ah. I wish that they would do more development in the United States, though. Because I felt like that it would be a bit better for them if they were around in the afternoon. Be better for me, at least. Cooler Master makes chairs now? Well, that's interesting. Okay, well, that's the end. Today is, I don't know. End of month. Rebalancing churn. Because that's what today was. I don't know, guys. Anyways, hey, thanks for stopping by, saying hi, Stick. I hope you guys did well today. I guess my trades in the 10-year worked out. Anyways, I gotta get going. Oh, we'll have a good day tomorrow because I get the day off tomorrow, so I can do tons of stuff. Hey, anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay profitable.